Yeah, you read that right. It is finally freaking over. The most bizarre thing we have seen in a long time in a contract dispute. Brandon Aiyuk has finally signed a contract with the San Francisco 49ers. This could not have come fast enough. I was actually just saying not too long ago, like, how exhausted I am with this whole situation. It's exhausting to watch. Like, it was coming to the point where it was like, sign him or trade him. I'm getting sick of this. And I think a lot of it was from Brandon Aiyuk's side, from what I understand. But either way, I'm really happy to see him get signed. He obviously got a ton of money, so he should be pretty happy right now with how much money he ended up getting from the 49ers. It was like 70 plus million guaranteed. And I don't remember the total value of the contract, but it was not cheap. So he ended up getting a ton of money. He better be really happy about this one, because we'll talk about the fantasy football impact of all of it right now in this live draft, but we're getting into a live draft today, guys. So this is one of the last days that you're going to be able to get in Best Ball Mania. $25 buy-in with millions of dollars in prizes. $15 million in prizes, $1.5 million to first place, $750,000 to second. Basically, if you're getting like a top 50 spot, you're getting life-changing money. So if you do want to hop in the Best Ball Mania draft, you can use that link in the description below, and you could use code FFN. And when you deposit at least $10, they'll match your first deposit 50%, and they'll give you up to $1,000 of free bonus cash. So if you want to hop into Best Ball Mania, I'll put the link in the chat below as well. But it's definitely going to be something that you definitely should end up doing, because Best Ball Mania is a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Let me know what you guys got going on tonight. Let me know what is going on tonight in you guys' lives. And let's talk about the Brandon Aiyuk situation. So obviously, like I just said, he gets signed to a lot of money. And look, it's great. Obviously, it's a great situation. Where does it land in fantasy football? Well, the answer where it lands in fantasy football is that Brandon Aiyuk is in a good situation with San Francisco. And I think that's the reason he never wanted to leave in the first place. I don't think he wanted to leave. So it's just a situation where it's like, I think he was butthurt. I think he was really butthurt by the amount that they were going to give him. The link is not working in the chat, guys. Just wanted to let you know. So if you do want to join Underdog, use that link in the description. The link in the chat is not working right now. But it's just a situation where it's like, you can't think that he actually wanted to leave the 49ers. Like, his upside with San Francisco is so much higher than any of the teams who were potentially trading for him. Like, we were talking about teams that wanted him, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, the Washington Commanders. Like, I like the Commanders' trajectory, but they weren't providing him the upside he was getting in San Francisco. New England and Pittsburgh definitely were not giving him that level of upside, and Cleveland wasn't either. So I don't think he ever wanted to leave. And that's why he nixed a couple trade ideas. He was just upset. So that's why this whole thing was so bizarre. Watching this whole Brandon Aiyuk saga play out, I ultimately think where he lands in fantasy is going to be probably around like wide receiver 15 to 16 for me. Like, he's going to move up a little bit in these rankings, because now that we know he's going to play for the 49ers is good. I do worry about him, though, to start the season, because he didn't practice. Like, he's not ready. I don't think he's ready. So it's hard for you to come in right away and be ready to play after missing a bunch of practice time. So the Aiyuk situation was it was exhausting. I hope for his sake he's ready to play. I'm glad Tyreek fell in my lap at number 4 overall here. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I think Aiyuk is going to be like in my rankings, top 15, top 16 guy. Debo's probably still around 20. And Kittle is going to be one of my favorite values in drafts right now, personally. But let me know what y'all think about the Aiyuk situation. Burnafu, what's going on? Best sleeper defense in your opinion? When I factor in sleepers, it may be a little bit different than how most people factor it in, because a lot of people say the Raiders defense is a sleeper defense. And I think that's true in a sense. For me, I've been shouting about them all offseason, so they're not really much of a sleeper defense to me. And by the way, defense ranking update tomorrow, so make sure to stay tuned. Watch that video as soon as it goes uploaded. It's a little different for me. A sleeper defense for me is somebody like the Tennessee Titans this year. The Tennessee Titans are a sleeper defense because they're making personnel moves that I think are positive. Like, they obviously got L'Jarius Sneed in that secondary. They released Caleb Farley this week. And they just traded for Ernest Jones, a really good linebacker from the Los Angeles Rams. So they're going to be a sleeper defense to me. I would also consider the Packers defense and the Vikings defense sleeper defenses. The Packers defense has talent, but they've been the defense last year is the reason that they didn't make it to the NFC Championship. And the Vikings defense, because I think Brian Flores is a really good coordinator and they have talent, but I also do believe that they'll be handicapped because of a worse offense than they've been used to. So I would say one of my favorite sleepers is probably Tennessee, and I would also consider Green Bay and Minnesota in that list as well. Spencer Lawrence, am I crazy for taking Brees over CMC at 103? I don't think you're crazy. I don't think you're crazy. Hold that thought. I'm going to get back to that. I just wanted to show you guys something. This is something that is very unique. I don't show a lot of people this, so you guys are in a good position. And I would not show you this if I didn't love you guys so much. So please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Because what I did here is I researched a ton of draft strategies on Underdog to find some of the best ones. So there's a lot more than this list covers right here that you're seeing. But essentially what I'm going to do today is based on what happens here, who I ended up with in this range. I'm probably going to go wide receiver 2 here. So I'm going to utilize one of these draft strategies right here. It's going to be one of these 3 draft strategies right here that I'm going to utilize. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Jalen Waddle. And so essentially what I'm going to do here is utilize one of these draft strategies. So essentially what you see here is this 21.8% number. That's your chances to advance the playoffs, which is extremely high. Very, very high. I think I'm back on the clock. No, I'm not. Okay, 5 picks away. That's a really high chance to advance in best ball leagues because you start out with like a 16% chance. Then this next number right here is the semifinals advance rate. 1.82, very high success rate of advancing to the semifinals. And then the finals advance rate, which is also really high in this range as well. So it's going to be one of these 2 draft strategies based on who falls to me. And like I said, guys, exclusive stuff. I don't share that with everybody, so I love you guys. And just make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support, and sign up for Underdog. Hop in one of these best ball drafts if you want to take advantage of it. So let me make this pick, and then I'm going to get back to you on that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go with the wide receiver 3. We're going to get DJ Moore because I love DJ Moore. And I think he's a great value here. So, Spencer, I want to get back to your question, which is, are you crazy for taking Brees over CMC? I don't think you're crazy. I understand the premise of what you're doing. I understand that Christian McCaffrey, that situation is not ideal. And I also do understand that Brees Hall, I would consider his situation potentially more ideal based on offensive line, based on just age. You know, like there's a lot of things that you could make the argument for with Brees. I can't in my right mind, and I get this question every day. I address this question every day, so I'm used to saying it. The answer for me hasn't changed. I cannot in my right mind tell any of my audience to pass on Christian McCaffrey. The reason why is because he's the only player in fantasy, as far as right now, who has shown the ability to outscore the next best in their position category by over 100 fantasy points. There's just nobody else who could do that. So I'm not saying that he's going to be that guy this year, but if we look back, and by week 12, Christian McCaffrey is doing what we think he can do, and we've seen him do, and you passed on him for the running back 2, the running back 3, you'll feel decent about the production, but just knowing that you passed on him is a tough pill to swallow. So I can't rightfully tell my audience to avoid him. I don't like to draft Bryce out of fear. I just don't. I'm willing to lose sometimes, and nothing's permanent. You can find ways to win, so I get it. It's a tough situation. I don't want the 101 myself, but if I had it, I would take Christian McCaffrey, and in your position, I would take him at the 103 if he fell to me. Dave says, Aiyuk is a solid wide receiver too. I think we saw his ceiling last season. I actually agree with that. Unless we see some season-long injuries to Kittle or Debo. Plus, San Fran drafted a couple wide receivers. Yeah, I don't think that factors in at this point because they just paid him. Like, they did not sign him so they could give Ricky Pearsall work that will eat into Aiyuk's workload. The Ricky Pearsall pick at this point looks more like what's the word I'm looking for? It is a replacement plan for when Deebo Samuel is no longer the player they know him as. Because Deebo's a unique guy. Like, Deebo's one of the most unique players we've seen in football in a long time. This guy is not only running routes for this team, he's also running the ball. So, theoretically, his ceiling, or I'm sorry, not his ceiling, his lifeline may be more similar to a running back in fantasy football than it is for a wide receiver. So I think Ricky Pearsall at this point can be looked at more as a replacement for Deebo than eating into Brandon Aiyuk's workload this year. And by the way, like, Ricky Pearsall has been out a lot this offseason, so I don't anticipate them really using him like that. Well, I was hoping Rashee Rice would fall to me, but he did not. So we're going to end up taking Pittman here. I think Pittman's pretty good value here as my wide receiver 4. Yeah, but I'm curious to know what y'all think. Brandon Aiyuk, where do y'all think he finishes this year? He's probably going to be, I can't tell you it's not set in stone right now, but as of right now, I'm probably thinking he goes up to like wide receiver 16 area. Bernafu, who's your favorite wide receiver 2? Based on ADP, Nico Collins, for sure. Nico Collins, I think his ADP is so much lower than I would have him. For me, he's a top 10 guy. So getting him as a wide receiver 2 value in drafts, I think that's an easy move. Yeah, Nico's definitely the easiest one for me. Because Marvin's going ahead of him in most platforms. And, like, I love Marvin. Obviously, I love Marvin Harrison Jr. But I like Nico just a little bit more. So I would go with Nico personally. So we ended up taking this draft strategy right here, which has a 23.9% chance of advancement to the playoffs and a 2.72 advancement chance to the semifinals. So what we need to do here, based on this strategy, is we're going to go tight end in round 5. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab Mark Andrews, even though he is a little bit concerning at this point because he is still missing time. But in the 5th round, I think he's a pretty decent value. So through the first 5 rounds, let's see what the team looks like. First 5 rounds, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 2 Dolphins right out of the gate. In hindsight, may not have done that, but I'm okay with it because it's best ball. DJ Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., and Mark Andrews. So obviously we're going to start looking towards running backs in this range. Nate Dogg, what's going on? Good to see you in here tonight. Dave, I like it, Spencer. Less wear and tear. Brees is healthy. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. Let's get a topic going. So at this point, considering everything that we know about Brees Hall, Chris McCaffrey, everything we know about every player at this point, who do y'all want to take at the running back position? If you have the option of both, Christian McCaffrey, Brees Hall, which one are you taking? I'm taking CMC. Can't rightfully tell anybody not to, but let me know what y'all are thinking. Fat Randy, what's going on? My league pays out each week to highest scoring team. That's an interesting way to do it. I like it. How should I draft knowing this? It's 12 team, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex, half PPR. Well, since you're asking me this, I'm assuming that you obviously put a lot of stock into winning the week rather than winning the championship. I don't know what your league prize is, if there is one, to a championship winner, but it sounds like you're wanting to maximize as much as you can early. In that case, you have 3 wide receiver format here, so you're going to want to, like, the wide receiver values, in my opinion, if you go watch my rankings videos, like, they're not going to change based on 2 wide receiver versus 3 wide receiver. I still believe in those wide receivers. So I would go watch the wide receiver ranking video. When it comes to running backs, since you're in a 3 wide receiver league, you're probably going to lean more wide receiver early. And so what I would say with running backs is that typically, like around the time I'm picking right now, I'll just show you some of the running backs available. Like guys in this range, like Montgomery, I think has pretty much long season value. It should be good situations. Kamara is a guy that I think his production is a lot of times going to be front loaded towards the beginning of the season because he's an older player. James Conner, I feel similarly. I think a lot of his production will be front loaded towards the beginning of the season. So I think he could win you a lot of weeks. Najee I would avoid personally. Aaron Jones I would avoid. Ramondre probably would avoid. Raheem Mostert's a guy that I would target because those are guys who have a lot of boom potential on a per week basis. So that's probably what I would approach it as. That's an interesting way to play though. Bernafu, Brees fine at the number 2 pick overall over Lamb and Hill. So what I'm getting here is that you're obviously really high on Brees, and I don't blame you. Love Brees Hall, got him in some dynasty leagues. I want him to do well, and I think he will. I think he's an elite talent, and I think he's one of the best, if not their best offensive playmaker. I wouldn't personally take him over Tyreek and CeeDee Lamb, personally. I'm going to go ahead and pick quarterback here. I don't feel great about having Kamara or Connor as my running back 1. If they followed me, great, but I want to pick a good quarterback. So, Brees is going to be really good. Like, I don't have a question that Brees Hall is going to be a really good player this year. With Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb, I think they've both shown that, like, if you just go based on last year, like, they averaged, like, basically, like, 3 to 4 more fantasy points per game than Brees Hall did. So, like, they're better fantasy options based on what they did last year. Now, the upside may be better this year because of Aaron Rodgers. I'm not totally sold on Rodgers this year personally, but I obviously know, like, he's obviously going to be much better this year than he was last year. Brees Hall, like, his situation is much better this year than it was last year. So, like, I get it, but I still prefer Tyreek and CeeDee because we just know their situations are what they were last year. We know what their situations, what to expect. So Kamara and Connor go, so I lost the gamble right there. I'm more comfortable having Raheem Mostert as my number 1 running back. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Mostert here. And 3, Dolphins is a little uncomfortable, but this is one of the best, if not the best fantasy offense, is the second best. So I've done a lot. I don't really have a big problem with doing it. But sometimes maybe don't overdo it like I do sometimes. JMW85. In my keeper home league, I have Nico Collins at round 10 and Sam Laporta at round 12. Man, those are great keepers right there. I mean, those are literally as good as you can get. So, the good thing about keepers, and it sounds like you understand this, is that if you guys play in a keeper league, what's important to remember is that keepers are all about keeping the guys who are going to be the most valuable as far as who jumped up the most from last year's draft to this year's draft. Like, for example, Kyron Williams wasn't being drafted last year, so he's not a great example. Nico Collins and Sam Laporta are two prime examples. Like, those are guys who were late round picks last year. Now they're both like third to second round picks. So you want to hold on to those guys, give up your picks in the 11th, 12th, because you're going to get more great values in rounds 2 and 3. So, like, when someone asks me, oh, should I keep Bijan Robinson this year? It's like, should you keep him over who? Like, would you keep, like, if someone asked me, like, would you keep Bijan Robinson over Raheem Mostert? I'm like, no, I wouldn't personally, because Raheem Mostert last year was worth, like, nothing. Now he's worth, like, a 7th, 8th round pick. If you keep Bijan, like, you're not really gaining anything. Like, you're gonna lose your first round pick, where you may have a better option this year. So, like, you'll get to keep your first round pick if you let Bijan go, and you'll just be giving up like a 12th rounder. So, like, it sounds like you understand that, which is good. Spencer Lawrence, best draft position in a 10-man league. This is a fun question. I love to always talk about this. Draft positions, you know, a lot of people really don't like the front of the draft. I think the number 3 spot is the best this year, personally. I think the number 3 spot is great because you don't have the pressure of passing on Christian McCaffrey or taking him. But what you get is the opportunity to take an elite wide receiver. Or if you want to take Breece Hall or Bijan, do it. So I love the number 3. I find a lot of great values by position throughout the draft at the number 3. I also think the 4 is a great spot too. I'm okay with the 10. I do not like the 8. That's probably my least favorite, but I'm okay with 10 too. 10, you obviously have the ability to pick back-to-back, and there's good values there as well, from what I've seen. I'm going to try to bank on one of my running backs getting back to me. I'm going to go ahead and pick Courtland Sutton as my 5th wide receiver. So we went wide receiver heavy, as you guys can see. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., and Courtland Sutton. I'm going to adjust my camera angle so you guys can see the draft board just a little bit better. That should be better. So yeah, that's what I think. Those draft positions are good. M&M cards. I think Jacobs is going to be a beast. And Joshua Palmer is a big sleeper. I would totally agree with that. I agree mostly with Jacobs. I've been on Jacobs for a while. Like, I've been on Josh Jacobs' case for basically since he got signed to the Packers. I always have thought he's been one of the most underrated, underdrafted, best value picks at the running back position, basically since he got picked. Like, I was honestly assuming once he went to the Packers, he was going to be, like, valued as, like, a top 8 running back, and it just never shook out that way. And it's starting to finally now. And it's for good reason, obviously. I've got so much of Brian Robinson Jr. I want to build more Javonte stock. So I'm going to go with Javonte Williams here. It would be ideal if Brian Robinson could fall to me again. I don't think it's going to happen, though. But we can wish for it right now. And I'm cool with Gus, too. Jacobs is going to be great. I think Jacobs is going to be great. It's so funny because it's like LaFleur is like over the history one to use a running back by committee approach. Well, the problem with that plan this year is that the guy that they drafted in the 3rd round, Marshawn Lloyd, who I actually liked a lot out of USC, he's been absent for basically all of the offseason practice, valuable practice time for a mid-round rookie, and he doesn't have a return date set. That's typically not a good start for a rookie in the 3rd round. So I don't think he's going to be I don't think they're going to rely on him as their number 2. Obviously, A.J. Dillon out for the year now. So they're at their fourth string running back, basically, to provide them this committee that they want so badly. Or just take the obvious solution. Jacobs is your running back one, and he should be used like that. Dude, we know he can handle the workload. We know he went off a couple years ago on a worse offense. So I love Jacobs this year. Totally in agreement. And Palmer, I like the value in a lot. Like, I like the value. I just don't believe he provides much upside. Like, for example, in a best ball draft, I like Josh Palmer because he has the ability to finish. Like, he's being drafted. I think he went off the board, but like usually he's being drafted like in this range, like 50 to 55 wide receiver. He has the ability to finish as like a top 36 wide receiver. That doesn't move the needle in a redraft league. So I don't have any interest in drafting him in a redraft personally because we've seen him play. He's just simply not a wide receiver one in an offense. We've seen it. They've tried, like he had plenty of opportunities for 2 years and he couldn't get it done. So I don't love him in redraft leagues, but I do like him in best ball. Double M. Hey man, I just want your thoughts on my team. It's Kyler, JT, Saquon, Garrett, Debo, McBride, and Kupp. 10-man PPR. It looks great. I mean, Kyler Murray, I think, is a great steal at quarterback. I think he's a great value. Definitely has the ceiling of a top 5 guy, but his floor's obviously a little bit lower. I think he's still being underdrafted, though. I think he's a great value. I love JT. Saquon, I think he's a good player. Don't love his draft price, personally. What I personally would have done is I would have punted on Saquon, and you probably got him in the first. I would have probably... Curious how you got both Saquon, Garrett, and Jonathan Taylor, for that matter. Would have probably went wide receiver again in the Saquon spot, personally. Because I think there's good wide receivers available when Saquon gets picked. But overall, I think it's good. Like, you've got a good mixture of solid floors and high upside. Like, Debo's high upside. I think McBride and Kyler's stack is elite. And Cooper Kupp is really high upside as well. So I like it. It looks good. Let's make this pick. Is it time to go quarterback? We've got Gus available. Yeah, I'll punt on quarterback right now. I'll go Gus. The Goose Boost. So running back, I've got Mostert, Javonte, and Goose Boost. Gus Bus. Z Smitty, what's going on? Should I trade Terry McLaurin for Mike Evans and Pollard? Wow. I cannot believe you're getting Evans and Pollard. Yeah, of course make that trade. Like, I like Terry McLaurin. I'm getting higher on Terry McLaurin, but not that high. Yeah, I would definitely take Mike Evans and Tony Pollard over Terry McLaurin. I would take Mike Evans straight up over Terry McLaurin. So especially if you can get Pollard in on it too. Nate Dogg, my man. I would still take CMC just because Rodgers and Hall really haven't been in the depths of difficult games together. So I think it's just a lack of experience for me. Interesting perspective. Yeah, I don't share that exact same perspective, but I see where you're coming from. It's a new situation that he's going to walk into. What I will counter with that is I believe that Breece Hall, when you actually looked at his targets per game last year, they were so ridiculous. Like, he was getting like 5, almost 6 targets per game. Do I have stack potential? Yeah, I could stack. We're going to go with the Tua stack. So, with Breece, like, he got so many targets per game last year. So, obviously, people are like, is he gonna see that many with Rodgers? I think he will. Like, and I don't really think it's a question. Rodgers can't move at this point. He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles tear. Like, I think he's gonna be kind of a statue back there, which is like unnormal, not natural for him. So I think he'll check down to Brees quite a bit. So I'm not worried about him. Like I said, when I make my argument of Tyreek versus CD, people laugh at it and they're like, this is so stupid. But the reason I do it is because we're talking about like the best of the best in fantasy. So I do want to scrutinize everybody. So I see what you're saying. I prefer McCaffrey just because he's able to do more than Brees has. What are some late quarterbacks that could just bring you into the playoffs so that you can draft more wide receiver or running backs? I mean, for example, like the guy that I just drafted, Tua, is a guy that will carry you, I think, for a lot of weeks in the first 10 games of the year. I would not have picked Tua unless he was my quarterback too. The reason I like Tua is because Miami is so explosive, and they usually do so well at the beginning of the year. I expect the same. I think they'll do well, and then I think he'll crater because Miami is not as good in the cold. They're just not. So I think this is a guy that could get you to your playoffs just based on the first 10 games. A little risky. Goff is a guy I think will get you to your playoffs. I think Goff is someone you can rely on who's a late-round guy. Herbert probably is. I'm a little bit more worried about Herbert because I know they're going to be run-heavy, and I know that his wide receivers are just not very good. So my favorite of the bunch is probably Goff season-long. I would say Tua is going to be the most explosive in your first 10 games. Like, he could get you off to a really hot start. Burnafood, do you have Lamb over Hill? I have Tyreek over Lamb. Tyreek over Lamb. Do we have time? Do you guys want to hear my argument? Let me know if you want to hear my Tyreek over CD Lamb argument. But yes, I have Tyreek Hill over CD Lamb. You know what we're doing here. Jalen Wright or Chuba? I mean, duh. Chuba Hubbard. My most drafted player on Underdog this year. Love Chuba Hubbard. Knight. What's going on? Quick question. Someone dropped Jalen Warren. Do I claim him in my free spot? I have Brooks on IR. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jalen Warren is someone that you pick up. Jalen Warren, I'm not big on him. Like, he's towards the back of my top 36 running back rankings, which you haven't seen. Go watch that video after this live stream. But, man, Jalen Warren should not be on waiver wires. So, yes, absolutely go pick him up right now. And like I said, guys, if you do want to get in Best Ball Mania, the tournament I'm in right now, $25 buy-in, $1.5 million to first place. Tons of, like, life-changing money in this draft. So if you do want to get in on it, there's a link in the description to get to Underdog. You can use that link, follow it, use code FFN to sign up, and when you deposit at least $10, they're going to start matching you at 50%, all the way up to $1,000 in free bonus cash. So to support the channel, that helps me a lot as well. So if you do want to hop in on Underdog, support the channel, use that link in the description. Ham, if you didn't know, your microphone is the only right is only in the right ear in headphones. I don't know if that's a microphone issue or if that's maybe your headphones. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Jalen Wright falls me. I have so many Dolphins. I have 4 Dolphins already. I don't think I should do another one. It doesn't make much sense. I think I can wait. I'll go JK. Probably done with running backs. Demetrios, what's going on? Ryan, I just realized my my drafting in my other leagues at the same time and date is our Patreon league. So yeah, if you guys don't know, over on Patreon, I'm doing fantasy leagues exclusively for Patreon members. So if you do want to get in on the Patreon league, there is a link in the description as well. You can join the Patreon today. We can play fantasy together. What I'll do, Demetrios, is I'll check with everybody in the league and I'll see if anybody has time conflictions. And if there's a couple different ones, we'll try to move it. But it should be an interesting night for you, indeed. But it's good to see you tonight, man. It's good to see you. Let me know what you guys got going on right now. Let me know what topics you want to discuss. Oh, there was another topic that we could discuss while we wait for more chats. First of all, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Ja'Marr Chase. This situation is getting quietly ugly. Be careful. I'm not saying to not draft him. Like, he's going to fall. And if he falls past, like, Justin Jefferson, you take him. You take him before you take A.J. Brown. He's already falling past the running backs. Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, he's already falling past them. He's falling past him on Ross A. Brown. If he falls past Justin Jefferson, take Ja'Marr Chase. But make sure to watch. My ultimate belief is, like, just like with all holdouts, they're not going to extend into the season. The last time we saw a player blatantly just throw a year of their prime away was Le'Veon Bell. Look how it turned out for him. So I think a lot of players see that as like a cautionary tale of like, you can't do that. Like, you can't just like decide to set out a prime year of your career just because you want more money. It doesn't benefit you in the long run. It didn't benefit Le'Veon, and he ended up basically wasting, like, he not only threw like tens of millions out the window, he also threw away a massive year of his prime. So it's not a smart move. And I think that Ja'Marr Chase is smart enough to realize that. So that's why I say, like, make sure to watch, because it's getting quietly ugly, and the Bengals are a historically cheap franchise. They are a historically cheap franchise. I believe it gets done, though. And I believe Ja'Marr Chase plays, so I'm not worried about him, because I don't think he's dumb enough to sit out during the regular season. Last time we did that, it was a disaster. And even someone like Melvin Gordon, like, I think he sat out for a couple games a couple years ago. That didn't turn out well for him either. So it's just not a historically, like, there's history, and these NFL players, they know it. So I don't think that he will end up sitting out, but it is one to watch, and it is one that I would say, if he falls to you to pass Justin Jefferson, I would take Ja'Marr Chase. Run CMC. Hey, buddy, will you drop Raiders defense for the New York Jets? I will personally not be doing that. On that note, the defense ranking video update is tomorrow. So everybody make sure, set your alarm clocks for 9 a.m. Central, because that video is coming out tomorrow, and it's an important one. I'm not done with that question. Just going to make this pick. Well, I wasn't anticipating Musgrave making it back to me, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Luke Musgrave. Got so much of Musgrave. Hopefully McMillan falls. Love drafting Jalen McMillan. But we'll see. If not, I'll probably just wait and get Marvin Mims or maybe Quentin Johnston. So an important thing to know is that the video tomorrow is not week one defense. There will be a week one defense video next week. This video tomorrow is going to be my predictions for, by the end of the season, who will be the top 12. Next week, week one preparation starts entirely. So all rankings will be out next week. Make sure to stay tuned. The Raiders defense, I think, is just better. I think the Raiders defense is going to smash this year. I don't remember who the Raiders are playing week one. Yeah. I don't remember who they're playing. But, let's see. Nate Dogg, shoot, what if I drafted Chase in one of my leagues? I also want to ask about the running back field in Cleveland. I noticed in the top running back video they weren't on the list. So about Chase, you're going to be fine. Like I said, I don't think there's much cause for concern with Jamar Chase missing real time. Jalen McMillan is one of my favorite wide receivers to draft right now. I don't think there's much cause for concern with Jamar Chase. I just don't think he's dumb enough to sit out. I don't. So I think you're going to be fine. So Cleveland, here's my story with Cleveland. I honestly believe that, like, it makes total sense why people are upset about Jerome Ford not being on the list yesterday or today in the running back rankings video. Here's my reasons why. By the way, he's not far outside the top 36. Like, he's definitely obviously in that range. My reasoning for it is because, number one, the reality with him is that when Chubb returns, he will see a sizable difference in his volume, and I don't think he can get out ahead enough to finish as a top 36 running back. Like, I'm not saying that Chubb is going to come in right away and just, like, put him on the sidelines, but I don't believe that Deonta Foreman is going to be a sideline guy, which means that I don't believe Jerome Ford's going to be a 3-down back. And the reason why is the other reason he's not up there is because I simply don't think Jerome Ford's that great of a player. I just don't. Like, last year, he worked with a great offensive line. They were great last year, too, and he really wasn't that great in fantasy. He does okay, and he played the majority of last year, so that's why he was like a top 25, top 30 guy. But give him 8 games this year. I don't think he's going to be a top 36 guy. So that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong, as always. If you're new to the channel, you'll see it every week. I come out with a live stream on Monday nights, what I got right and what I got wrong. That's where I take accountability. We get transparent. So maybe I'll be talking about it at some point, but that's my rationale for right now, is that I just don't believe that he'll be a 3-down back when he's the number 1 running back. And the reason why is because I don't think he's that great of a player. So that's my rationale with Cleveland. But I want to make it clear, like, where he's going in drafts, I don't have a problem with taking him. He's not going that high because I think a lot of people understand he's not that great. So I actually like taking him in drafts, especially in a redraft league where you can ride the wave with him for a couple weeks and then trade him high. That's what I would personally do if I did draft him in a redraft league. But in a best ball format and just from a season-long perspective, he's just not my guy. Alex Hender, how much we moving Aiyuk up? Yeah, I was talking about this earlier in the live stream. I will probably be moving Brandon Aiyuk up to like wide receiver 16 range, but I don't know quite yet. You'll see my new wide receiver rankings video when we get to week 1. Season long, he's probably going to be like my wide receiver 16 or so. I haven't looked at it enough yet. I kind of went live not too long after the news dropped. And I was watching a little bit of the Colorado-North Dakota State game. Side note, keep an eye on Justin freaking Hunter. Hunter's a ridiculous player. He'll be a really good fantasy asset one day. Demetrios, it's all good. I'll do what I have to do. Enjoy the rest of your night. Good to see you in here, Demetrios. It's going to be a fun Patreon league. Like I said, if you want to join the Patreon league, there is a link in the description where you can join the Patreon. It's going to be a fun league. Yeah, I mean, I just prefer Marvin Mims. Simple as that. So a wide receiver, I've got Tyreek and Jalen, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Cortland Sutton, Jalen McMillan, and Marvin Mims. I like that wide receiver room. Nate Dogg. Ooh, I should be good with Chase. Yeah, you're going to be fine. Jamar Chase is going to be fine. Like I said, I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I really just don't think he's going to sit games. Alex Hender, my 12-man, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex, 110 PPR league. Mahomes, Garrett Wilson, Marv, Aiyuk, Rashee Rice, James Cook, Mostert, Najee, Thomas Jr., Corum, Chuba, Polk, Fant. I'm a biased Hawks fan. Explosive season inbound. How'd I do? I think you did great. Yeah, that's a great team in my opinion. You've got your wide receiver room's great. You've got 4 viable starters. So one of those guys could easily go in your flex. Not wild on Najee as your RB3 personally, but I understand why you had to do it because you want heavy wide receivers early. And I think that Cook and Moser will provide you enough upside. And Chuba I do as well. I think Chuba... By the way, you'll see Chuba... Just wait till week 1 running back rankings. Wait till you see where I rank Chuba Hubbard. It's going to be... It's going to shock the world. Running out of time. I just don't like the running backs, really. I'm going to go with Diami Brown. Following my gut. Run CMC, thanks. I guess I've become the longest losing streak in your hats contest. Just keep trying. Run CMC. A lot of times they're like randomly selected for me. I just like kind of close my eyes and like wherever my mouse falls, I just pick them. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your support. And maybe one day you'll get one. Just make sure to stay tuned. Maybe you'll get one. B Silva. Who to draft at the 112 and 12-1? 12-1? Do you mean 201? Half PPR. 112 and 201, that's my Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson range, typically. If Garrett Wilson's gone, Puka's also a great option. Or Puka is my ideal option, actually. So, like, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka is usually the duo I'm looking at. Because Puka's my wide receiver 7 behind A.J. Brown. And Gibbs is my running back 4 behind Bijan Robinson. So that's usually my plan at the 1-2 turn, or the 12-1 turn. Run CMC, what do you think about Kyron's downgrade? Will you drop Hollywood or Worthy for Blake Corum and Handcuff? Thanks again, buddy. Have a good one. Appreciate you being here, Run CMC. First part of your question. Here, give me 1 second, guys. I went over this on the running back ranking video. So, with Kyron Williams, and Nate Dogg asked what happened to him. So with Kyron Williams, he's apparently going to be their punt returner this year. And there's a lot of concern, obviously, with him getting injured, and maybe that means that he has less of a workload. I'm not really worried about it. I'm buying the dip if he dips. He has dipped. I did another Underdog best ball draft before I went live, and he's dipped. I bought him already today, so it's going to be a situation where I think when we look back, a lot of people will be feeling a little silly for dropping him. That's what I personally believe. So I'm not personally particularly worried about him. Kyron Williams to me is a buy. Like, he's a buy opportunity. If people are dropping him that much, like, be my guest, trade him to me. I'll take him. Like, my whole philosophy is just don't draft and play fantasy football scared. That's how you lose. Like, you may not win every time doing that. Want to make that clear. I get stuff wrong all the time. That's why I have a whole segment, what I got right and wrong. And yeah, I've won a lot of fantasy championships while I've been playing fantasy for more than 10 years. I've also lost plenty because I'm a big swing taker. So, I'm going to stick with 5 running backs here, and I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd. I'm really shocked that he landed in my freaking lap. Yeah, so I just don't play fantasy scared. Like, I just think it's a bad thing to do. That's basically how you guarantee, like, maybe you won't be last, but like Ricky Bobby said, if you ain't first or last. Like, you can be middle of the pack, get to the playoffs playing safe, but you're probably not going to win it all. And the point of playing fantasy is to win championships. So Kyren Williams is like the perfect epitome of that for me right now. It's like, this is a guy who, if you just simplify things, with Kyren Williams, if you simplify it, looking at his numbers last year, what he did on a per-game basis and what he did season long, he averaged 20 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format. This guy was averaging 5 yards a carry for them. He had a ridiculous touchdown season. If he came in last year and he had like 1,000-yard season and he averaged like 3.9, 3.8 yards per carry and had like 5 touchdowns, they would have more of a easier time moving on from him. When you have that great of a season, I'm sorry, but no realistic team, especially an offense-leaning team, is going to look at that and say, yeah, we're going to give him less opportunities. Like, they won with him doing that. So, like I said, scared money don't make money. You know, I'll take Kyren Williams if people are selling. Alex Hender, Chuba going to have a year. They made enough upgrades on their O-line and a brilliant offensive coach. I think the Panthers will surprise a lot of people. I may be struggling to pick who to start. Yeah, totally love Chuba Hubbard. Been a big Chuba guy all last season. I could go on and on about it. Love him with Dave Canales, obviously. So, yeah, big Chuba Hubbard guy. And again, just wait till you see where I rank him week 1. Week 1 rankings will start next week. Not so silent majority. What's going on? We must be heading into Labor Day weekend. That means it's time to get me ready for football time. Don't even get me started. I cannot wait for football to begin. I was watching Colorado, North Dakota State before I went live. I'll probably rewind it a little bit after I'm done. Watch a little bit more. I love football. I'm the happiest during this time of year than I am at any other time. I love this sport. Just Dre, what's going on? 12-man standard league. Tua, Amon-Ra, Kupp, Montgomery, Jake Ferguson, Diggs, Thomas Jr. bench. Worthy, Aaron Jones, A.D. Mitchell, Kirk, Keon Coleman. Looks good. Yeah, it looks pretty solid, man. Standard league scoring is tough, which makes me want to go with more running back heavy. So I may have done it differently. Like, I would have probably not relied on Montgomery as my number 1 running back. Probably would have, at the very least, went hero running back, maybe even double hero. But obviously, in a standard league, that's just kind of what you have to do with running backs. Run CMC. Just realized I didn't answer the second part of your question. Will you drop Hollywood or Worthy for Blake Corum and handcuff? Definitely not dropping Worthy. I'm not dropping Worthy. I think Worthy has legitimate upside. Hollywood is on the bubble for me. I would try to see what I could get trade value out of him. Because I do think Corum is a valuable handcuff to have. Because right now, his value is good. And there's no way that you'll get Corum on the waiver. Like, he's on the waiver right now, but someone will pick him up. So, I would try to see what I could get, if anything, for Hollywood. And I might end up dropping Hollywood for Blake Corum to have that stack. Because not the stack, the handcuff. Because it is going to be valuable. I'm going to take a couple more questions, guys. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit tomorrow's video tonight, guys. Like I said, one-man show over here. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And the more and more chats I get, that's awesome. But I just want to say I can only realistically answer so much. So the way to jump the line is to do a super chat. So I'm going to take 3 more questions tonight. Not so silent majority. Yeah, man, it feels like this is going to be a year with a lot of surprises, sleepers. I'm hoping my FFN hat makes it before Tuesday. I plan on wearing it to my draft. Yeah, whenever I send you guys hats, I always make sure to email you guys. I always make sure to email the order details, so you should be able to click on them and see where your hat is at, if it's out for delivery or what the situation is. So make sure to check that. I do know those hats sometimes they usually take like a couple weeks to get there, so it is important to know that. But I'm hoping it gets there too for you. But you will get it at some point. It's just a matter of when. So, it's Kafka. What's going on? I dropped Wicks and picked up Brian Thomas Jr. What are your thoughts on this move? I would say that's a good move right now because Wicks is going to be, like, I love the passing upside in Green Bay. I prefer Wicks in more of a best ball format. I wouldn't pick up, like, I don't have much interest in Wicks in a redraft because, like, he's going to be infrequently on the field. Brian Thomas Jr., we actually know this guy is going to be on the field a good portion of the Jaguars' playing days. Like, for lack of a better term, I guess. But he should be a starter and get at least 70% of the snaps. Like, don't forget about Gabe Davis. They did sign him to a good amount of money. So he's going to be out there. But Brian Thomas Jr., apparently they really like him and he looks really good. So I think that's a good move to pick him up instead of Wicks, personally. Low-key Dusty. Last question. I have two people in my league who want Zamir. One will give Daniels and one will give Thomas Jr. Whose offer should I take? My quarterback is Cousins right now, and my wide receivers are Dell, Cup, and Waddle with Worthy. I would personally take Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I don't. Not only do I think he's the better player to get between him and Brian Thomas Jr., I also believe that Kirk Cousins is not one that I could rely on at all this year. Like, mid-30s, I've talked about this a lot, mid-30s coming off an Achilles tear in an offense that I believe will be run first. So I don't really have a ton of faith in Kirk Cousins as much as I did with Minnesota. So Jaden Daniels is obviously, if you watch my quarterback rankings video, he's a big surprise for me this year. I think he's going to have a good year. So I would trade Zamir for Jaden Daniels personally. That's what I would do. So guys, thanks for coming in tonight. I appreciate y'all being here. Love doing these live drafts with you guys. On your way out, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And like I said, guys, you're running out of time to get in Best Ball Mania. Support the channel by going to Underdog using that link in the description below. Use code FFN to sign up. And I will see you guys on tomorrow's very important video. Peace out, everybody. Have a good night.